He helped a stranger without knowing she would decide his fate in court. Jason Mitchell was cycling along the country road that cut through the fields of Portland when he saw the scene that would change his life forever. A woman was kneeling beside a red car, her hands on her head in complete despair. That's when he realized she had a flat tire and no tools in sight. Jason didn't hesitate for a second before stopping his old bicycle and approaching her. "Do you need help, ma'am?" he asked, carefully getting off his bike. The woman lifted her face and Jason could see she had been crying. She was wearing an elegant black dress and high heels, clearly not dressed for changing tires on the side of the road. I don't know what to do," she said, her voice trembling. "I have a very important meeting in an hour, and I can't reach anyone. My phone is dead." Jason looked around. They were in the middle of nowhere, between cornfields that stretched as far as the eye could see. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with orange hues. "Don't worry," he said, taking off his faded denim jacket. "I'll take care of this for you." She watched as he opened the car trunk and found the spare tire and tools. Jason worked as a mechanic during the day and a pizza delivery guy at night, so changing a tire was something he could do with his eyes closed. "Are you sure? I don't want to trouble you," she said, noticing he was wearing his best clothes. "It's no trouble at all, ma'am. My mother always taught me to help those in need," Jason replied, already kneeling on the damp ground beside the car. While he worked, the woman remained silent, watching this stranger dirty his only good clothes to help her. Jason wasn't in a hurry, even though he knew he was late to pick up Emily, his 8-year-old daughter, from the neighbor's house. "May I ask your name?" she said after a few minutes. "Jason, ma'am. Jason Mitchell," he answered without stopping his work. "I'm Amanda," she said, hesitating for a moment before continuing. "I work at the family court here in Portland." Jason smiled while tightening the bolts. "That's important work, Miss Amanda. You must see a lot of difficult things there." "Yes, many families going through complicated times," she replied, her voice carrying a sadness Jason couldn't decipher. When he finished, Jason had grease on his hands and his dress shirt stained with dirt. He put the tools and the flat tire back in the trunk, making sure everything was secure. "All set, Miss Amanda. Now you can go to your important meeting," he said, wiping his hands on a cloth he found in the car. Amanda took her wallet out of her purse, but Jason raised his hand. "No need, Mum. It was my pleasure to help." "But your clothes, they got dirty because of me," she insisted. "Clothes can be washed," Jason replied with a genuine smile. "What matters is that you get to your appointment safely." Amanda stood for a few seconds looking at this man she had just met. There was something about him, a natural kindness she rarely encountered in her work. "How can I thank you?" she asked. "No need to thank me, just drive carefully and get there safely," said Jason, already walking back to his bicycle. "Jason," she called out as he was getting on the bike. "Thank you, really." He waved and rode away, leaving Amanda standing by the red car, watching him disappear around the curve in the road. She didn't know at that moment that 3 days later, their paths would cross again in a way neither of them could imagine. Jason arrived at Miss Dorothy's house, the elderly neighbor who looked after Emily after school, almost an hour late. The girl was sitting on the porch, swinging her legs and playing with her favorite doll. "Daddy!" shouted Emily, running into her father's arms. "Sorry, sweetheart. I had to help someone on the road," explained Jason, hugging his daughter. Miss Dorothy appeared at the door, smiling. "This boy never changes," she said to Emily, "always stopping to help others." "It's true, Grandma Dorothy," agreed Emily, who called the neighbor Grandma even though they weren't related. "Daddy always helps everyone." On the way home, Emily talked about her day at school, the drawings she made, and the story the teacher read to the class. Jason listened to every word carefully, as he always did. It was his favorite time of day when he could focus completely on his daughter. "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy come visit us anymore?" Emily asked suddenly, as they walked along the dirt road leading to their house. Jason felt his heart tighten. It was a question Emily was asking more and more often, and he still didn't know how to answer in a way she could understand. "Mommy is busy with her own things, sweetheart," he said, choosing his words carefully. but she said she'd be back soon. It's been a long time already, insisted Emily. Jason stopped walking and knelt in front of his daughter, holding her small hands. Listen here, Em. No matter what happens, Daddy will always be here with you, okay? Emily nodded, but Jason could see the confusion in her eyes. How could he explain to an 8-year-old that her own mother was trying to take custody away from him? How could he say that Jessica, his ex-wife, now married to a wealthy businessman, wanted to take Emily to live in New York? They arrived at the simple house where they lived, a small 2-bedroom building that Jason rented in the Meadowbrook Heights neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was clean, organized, and full of love. The living room walls were covered with Emily's drawings, and the makeshift bookshelf was filled with books Jason bought for her at used bookstores. Go take a bath while I make dinner, said Jason. Can I help? Asked Emily. Of course you can, sweetheart. While they prepared pasta with tomato sauce together, Jason tried not to think about the hearing that would take place in 3 days. His lawyer, Mr. Anthony, had been very clear. The odds weren't good. Jessica had money, an influential husband, and a team of expensive lawyers. Jason only had his love for his daughter and the help of a lawyer who worked for free. Is Daddy sad? Asked Emily, tugging on his shirt hem. No, sweetheart. Daddy's fine, lied Jason, forcing a smile. After dinner, while Emily did her homework at the kitchen table, Jason went to the bedroom and picked up the letter that had arrived that morning. It was from the bus company where he worked during the day. Due to constant delays caused by court hearings, they were considering firing him. Jason crumpled the letter and threw it in the trash. He couldn't afford to be unemployed now, not when he was fighting to prove he could support Emily. But he also couldn't miss the hearings. It was an impossible dilemma to solve. Daddy, I finished my homework, announced Emily. Come here, let's read a story before bed, said Jason, saving his worries for later. They sat together on the old but comfortable sofa, and Jason opened the book of fairy tales that Emily had chosen. It was about a princess who faced many difficulties but never gave up fighting for what was right. Daddy, do you think everyone who does good is rewarded in the end? Emily asked during the reading. Jason paused for a moment, looking at his daughter's innocent face. I believe so, sweetheart. Sometimes it takes time, but those who do good always receive good in return. So you're going to get a lot of good back, said Emily, hugging her father. Because you're the kindest person I know. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. On the morning of the hearing, Jason woke up at 5 a.m. He hadn't slept well, mentally rehearsing everything he wanted to say to the judge. He took a quick shower and put on his only suit, which he had specially dry cleaned for the occasion. Emily was still asleep when he left. Grandma Dorothy would be with her during the day, and Jason had made up an excuse about having to make a special delivery. He didn't want his daughter to know that her future was being discussed in a courtroom. The Portland County Courthouse was downtown, an imposing building that always intimidated Jason. He arrived an hour before the scheduled time and sat on a bench outside, watching well-dressed lawyers pass by with their leather briefcases. Mr. Anthony arrived 15 minutes later, a short, bald man who worked in a tiny office downtown. He was a good lawyer, but Jason knew he didn't have the resources to face the team Jessica had hired. How are you feeling? Asked Mr. Anthony, sitting next to Jason. Nervous, admitted Jason. Very nervous. Remember what we talked about. Be honest, stay calm, and trust in justice, the lawyer advised. And if it doesn't work? Asked Jason, his voice almost a whisper. It will work, said Mr. Anthony, but Jason could tell he was worried too. At 9 o'clock sharp they entered the building. Jason followed Mr. Anthony through the halls until they reached the hearing room. Jessica was already there, seated next to 2 impeccably dressed lawyers. She wore an expensive navy blue dress and had her hair perfectly styled. Jason felt his stomach churn when he saw her. Jessica was a beautiful woman, always had been. They met in school and dated for 5 years before getting married. Back then she dreamed of being a teacher, and he wanted to open an auto repair shop, but life took them on different paths. Jason, Jessica greeted coldly, without looking up from the documents. Jessica, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Mr. Henry Williams, Jessica's lead attorney, was known in Portland for never losing a case. Tall, with graying hair and a custom-made suit, he radiated confidence and authority. "Mr. Mitchell," said Mr. Henry, extending his hand to Jason with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I hope we can resolve this in the best way for everyone." Jason shook his hand, feeling the strength of the grip that seemed like a display of power. A few minutes later, the clerk announced that the judge had arrived. Jason stood up along with everyone else, expecting to see an elderly lady, as he imagined all judges to be. When the door opened and the magistrate entered the room, Jason felt his legs go weak. It was Miss Amanda, the woman from the red car, the same person he had helped 3 days earlier on the country road. Amanda, now wearing the black robe and with her hair in an impeccable bun, walked to her chair without looking directly at Jason. But he could see that she had recognized him by the way her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the documents. "Good morning," she said, her voice firm and professional. "I call to order the hearing regarding the child custody modification case for Emily Mitchell. I am Judge Amanda Wilson, presiding judge of this court." Jason was in shock. How was this possible? Of all the people in the world, why did it have to be her? Would this be good or bad for his case? Thousands of thoughts raced through his mind as he tried to process the situation. "Mr. Henry, you may begin presenting the plaintiff's arguments," said the judge. Jessica's lawyer stood up, adjusting his suit with calculated movements. "Your Honor, we are here because my client, Mrs. Jessica Brown Mitchell Taylor, is deeply concerned about the well-being of her daughter Emily," he began, his deep voice echoing through the room. Jason felt anger rising in his chest. Jessica concerned? She was the one who had abandoned Emily when she discovered she was pregnant with another man's child. "My client offers the minor conditions infinitely superior to those she currently has," continued Mr. Henry. "Education at a private bilingual school, top-tier health insurance, housing in an upscale neighborhood of New York, plus all the opportunities a child deserves to have." Judge Amanda listened in silence, taking notes without showing any emotion. Jason wondered what she was thinking. Would the fact that he had helped her influence her decision? Would she feel obligated to be biased because of that? "The current guardian, Mr. Jason Mitchell," the lawyer went on, pronouncing Jason's name as if it were something unpleasant, "lives in a rented house in an outlying neighborhood, works 2 minimum-wage jobs, and cannot provide the future that an intelligent child like Emily deserves." Jason clenched his fists under the table. Each word felt like a punch to the gut. It was true that he didn't have money, but did that mean he couldn't love his daughter? "Moreover, Your Honor," said Mr. Henry, picking up a thick folder, "we have here reports showing that Mr. Jason has frequently missed work, jeopardizing his financial stability." The lawyer handed the documents to the judge. Jason knew exactly what they were about. The absences were because of the hearings themselves. It was an impossible trap to escape. "Finally," concluded Mr. Henry, "my client is married to businessman Richard Taylor, owner of one of the largest supermarket chains in the state. They can provide Emily not only with financial stability, but also a structured family." When Mr. Henry finished, the judge turned to Mr. Anthony. "Mr. Anthony, you may present the defense." Jason's lawyer stood up, visibly nervous in the face of his opponent's eloquence. "Your Honor, it is true that my client does not have abundant financial resources," he began, "but he has something that no amount of money can buy: unconditional love for his daughter." Jason felt a glimmer of hope returning. Mr. Anthony might not have the same presence as Mr. Henry, but he was sincere. "Jason Mitchell has been caring for Emily since she was born. He was the one who woke up in the middle of the night when she cried, who took her to the doctor when she was sick, who taught her first steps and first words," the lawyer continued. "The plaintiff, Mrs. Jessica, abandoned the marital home when Emily was only 3 years old," said Mr. Anthony, his voice gaining strength. "Since then, she has had sporadic contact with the minor, claiming to be busy with her new life." Jason saw Jessica squirm in her chair, clearly uncomfortable with the exposure. "Furthermore, Your Honor, Emily is settled in the school she attends, has friends in the neighborhood, and a very close relationship with Miss Dorothy, a neighbor who helps with her daily care, argued Mr. Anthony. As for the financial issue, he continued, it is important to note that my client has always managed to provide all of his daughter's basic needs. Emily has clean clothes, food on the table, school supplies, and most importantly, the constant presence of her father in all the important moments of her life. Judge Amanda listened attentively, but her face remained impenetrable. Jason tried to read her expressions, searching for some sign that she remembered him or that this could help him. Your Honor, said Mr. Anthony, reaching the end of his argument, I request that custody remain with my client, considering that the minor's best interest is to stay in the environment where she has always lived, with the father who has always loved her unconditionally. When Mr. Anthony sat down, the room fell silent for a few seconds. The judge finished making her notes and looked up. We'll take a 15-minute recess, she announced. Then we'll hear the witnesses. Everyone stood as the judge left the room. Jason felt dizzy, as if he were in a nightmare. Mr. Anthony put a hand on his shoulder. Are you okay? He asked. I know the judge, whispered Jason. What do you mean? Mr. Anthony widened his eyes. Jason quickly recounted the encounter on the road. Mr. Anthony was thoughtful for a few moments. This could be good or bad, he said finally. She might feel compelled to be stricter to avoid appearing biased, or she might remember your character. Either way, we can't count on it. Across the room, Mr. Henry was speaking quietly with Jessica. Jason could see they were confident, as if they had already won the case. Jason! A woman's voice called him. He turned and saw a middle-aged woman approaching. It was Sylvia, the principal of Emily's school. Ms. Sylvia, you came to testify, asked Jason, surprised. Of course I did, she replied with a warm smile. Emily is one of my favorite students, and I've seen how you've cared for her all these years. Jason felt his eyes fill with tears. Miss Sylvia had offered to testify on his behalf, even knowing it could cause issues with other parents at the school who had more money. Thank you, said Jason, moved. This means a lot to me. You're a wonderful father, Jason, said Miss Sylvia, and Emily loves you very much. Anyone who knows you both can see that. When the hearing resumed, the first witness called was Miss Sylvia. She walked to the front of the room with dignity, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Ms. Sylvia, began Mr. Anthony, how long have you known Jason Mitchell? 5 years since Emily started at our school, she replied. Can you tell us about the relationship between father and daughter? It's one of the most beautiful relationships I've ever seen, said Miss Sylvia without hesitation. Jason has never missed a parent-teacher meeting, a performance or a school event. Even though he works hard, he always finds time for Emily. And what about Miss Jessica? Asked Mr. Anthony. Miss Sylvia hesitated for a moment, looking at Jessica. Miss Jessica attended some activities when Emily was younger, but in the last 2 years I haven't seen her at the school. Objection, protested Mr. Henry, standing up. The question is leading. Sustained, said Judge Amanda. Rephrase the question, Mr. Anthony. Miss Sylvia, in your professional opinion, what would be the impact on Emily if she changed schools and cities? It would be devastating, replied Miss Sylvia firmly. Emily is a shy child who took time to adjust. She has a stable routine and close friends. A radical change like that could cause serious emotional problems. When it was Mr. Henry's turn to question Miss Sylvia, he was relentless. Miss Sylvia, don't you think a bilingual private school education would be better for Emily? Education isn't measured only by the institution, she responded. It's measured by family support, parental interest, and constant presence. In that regard, Emily has the best she could have. But let's be honest, insisted Mr. Henry, a private school offers opportunities that a public school cannot offer. It offers different resources, admitted Miss Sylvia, but not necessarily a better education. Emily is one of the best students at the school, very well liked by her teachers and classmates. She is thriving where she is. Mr. Henry tried a few more questions, but Miss Sylvia held her ground. It was clear that she truly cared about Emily and believed that the girl should stay with Jason. The next witness was Grandma Dorothy. The elderly neighbor walked slowly to the front, leaning on her cane. When she swore to tell the truth, her voice trembled with emotion. "Grandma Dorothy," said Mr. Anthony gently, "do you look after Emily after school?" "Yes, I do, my dear," she replied. "That girl is like a granddaughter to me." "Can you tell us about her daily routine?" "Emily comes home from school, has lunch, does her homework, and plays in the backyard," Grandma Dorothy recounted. "At 6 o'clock, Jason comes home from work. The girl is overjoyed when she sees her father arriving." "And how does Mr. Jason treat his daughter?" "With so much love," said Grandma Dorothy, her eyes shining. "I've never seen such a dedicated father. When Emily is sick, he stays up all night taking care of her. When she struggles in school, he sits with her at the kitchen table to help with her homework." "Grandma Dorothy," interrupted Mr. Henry, "do you receive any payment for looking after Emily?" "No," she answered, confused by the question. "So you do it out of charity?" "I do it out of love," said Grandma Dorothy with dignity. "Emily is a wonderful child and Jason is like a son to me. But don't you think Emily deserves professional care like a qualified nanny?" Grandma Dorothy straightened up in her chair, her eyes flashing with indignation. "Young man," she said, her voice firm despite her age, "I raised 6 children, have 15 grandchildren, and have helped care for over 20 children in my life. Emily is safe, loved, and well taken care of. That is more qualification than any diploma." Jason felt proud of the old lady. Grandma Dorothy might not have formal education, but she had a wisdom and genuine love that no money could buy. The hearing was long and intense. Jason could see that Judge Amanda was paying attention to every detail, but he still couldn't figure out what she was thinking. Every now and then she would look at him for a few seconds, and Jason wondered if she was remembering the country road. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Mr. Henry called his first witness, Richard Taylor, Jessica's new husband. The businessman approached with confident steps, radiating confidence and economic power. "Mr. Richard," began Mr. Henry, "can you tell us about your financial situation and the conditions you offer for Emily?" "Of course," replied Richard, adjusting his expensive tie. "I am the owner of the Taylor's Supermarkets chain, which has 62 stores in 3 states. My annual income is approximately $2.5 million. Jason felt his stomach sink. $2.5 million. That was more money than he would earn in his entire life. "Emily would have her own 40-square-meter room in our mansion in the Upper East Side," continued Richard. "Besides, she is already enrolled in the New York International School, considered one of the best in the country." "And what about plans for her future?" asked Mr. Henry. "We plan to take her on vacation to Europe every year so she can experience other cultures," said Richard. "When she turns 15, she'll spend some time studying in the United States to improve her English." Each word felt like a stab to Jason's heart. How could he compete with that? How could he explain to a judge that love is worth more than trips to Europe? "Mr. Richard," said Mr. Anthony when it was his turn, "do you have any children?" "No," Richard replied. "So Emily would be your first child?" "She would be my first biological child, yes," Richard confirmed. "And have you spent time with Emily before?" Richard hesitated for a moment. "A few times, when she visited Jessica in New York." "How many times exactly?" pressed Mr. Anthony. "Maybe 5 or 6 times," Richard admitted, clearly uncomfortable. "In 5 years of being with Jessica, you only spent time with Emily 5 or 6 times?" repeated Mr. Anthony, letting the information hang in the room. "I had many professional responsibilities," Richard tried to justify himself. "I understand," said Mr. Anthony. "And when Emily visited you, what was the routine like?" "Well, she was mainly with Jessica. I worked during the day. Did you play with her, help with homework, read bedtime stories?" Richard was visibly irritated by the questions. "As I said, I worked a lot," he replied curtly. "One last question, Mr. Richard," said Mr. Anthony. "If Emily were to live with you, who would take care of her during the day?" "We have a very competent housekeeper and a nanny with excellent references," Richard answered. So Emily would spend most of her time with employees. They are qualified professionals, Richard insisted. But they're not her parents, concluded Mr. Anthony. Jason felt a glimmer of hope. Mr. Anthony was managing to show that despite all the money, Richard had no real interest in Emily as a person. The next witness was Jessica. Jason felt his chest tighten as she stood up and walked to the front. It was the first time in months they had been in the same room, and the good and bad memories came flooding back all at once. Jessica swore to tell the truth and sat down, crossing her legs elegantly. She was clearly comfortable, as if she were in a business meeting rather than deciding her own daughter's future. "Jessica," began Mr. Henry, "can you explain why you want custody of Emily now?" "Because I'm finally in a position to give her everything she deserves," Jessica replied without hesitation. "When we separated, I was going through a very difficult time in my life. I was confused, without direction. Now I'm married, emotionally and financially stable. And why did you leave Emily with Jason initially?" "At the time, I thought it would be better for her to have stability," said Jessica. "Jason has always been a good father, but now I see that Emily needs more than just love. She needs opportunities." Jason clenched his fists. How could Jessica talk about love as if it was something secondary? "Did you maintain regular contact with Emily all these years?" asked Mr. Henry. "Yes, whenever possible," Jessica replied. "But the distance between Portland and New York made visits difficult." It was a lie, and Jason knew it. Jessica had only visited Emily during the first few months after the separation. After that, the visits became sporadic until they practically disappeared. "Jessica," said Mr. Anthony when it was his turn, "when was the last time you spent an entire day with Emily?" Jessica hesitated, clearly trying to remember. "It was on her birthday in January," she finally answered. "January of this year or last year?" asked Mr. Anthony. "Last year," Jessica admitted, her face slightly flushing. "So it's been over a year since you've spent a full day with your daughter." I have a very busy life," Jessica tried to justify. "Do you know what Emily's favorite subject is at school?" asked Mr. Anthony. Jessica fell silent for a few seconds. "Math?" she guessed. "English," corrected Mr. Anthony. "Do you know her favorite color?" "Pink," Jessica answered more confidently. "Green," Mr. Anthony corrected again. "Do you know the name of her best friend?" Jessica was visibly nervous now. "I don't remember at the moment," she admitted. "It's Lily," said Mr. Anthony gently. "They met in first grade and have been inseparable." Jason felt a mix of sadness and anger. How could Jessica want to take Emily away from everything she knew and loved if she didn't even know basic details about her daughter's life? "One last question, Jessica," said Mr. Anthony. "If you get custody of Emily, do you intend to allow her to visit her father regularly?" "Of course," Jessica replied quickly. "Jason can visit her whenever he wants." "In New York?" "Yes." "Do you know Jason works 2 jobs and earns minimum wage? How would he afford constant trips to New York?" Jessica fell silent, clearly not having thought of that. "He could figure out a way," she said finally. "Jessica," Mr. Anthony insisted, "be honest with the court. If Emily goes to live with you in New York, what would be the actual frequency of visits with her father?" Jessica looked at Mr. Henry, clearly seeking help. "Maybe once a month," she said hesitantly. "Once a month," repeated Mr. Anthony, letting everyone in the room process the information. Jason felt his heart shatter. Once a month. He, who saw Emily every day, who took her to school every morning, who helped with homework every afternoon, would be reduced to a monthly visitor. Judge Amanda had observed the entire questioning in silence, constantly taking notes. When Jessica returned to her seat, the magistrate announced another recess. "We'll resume in half an hour," she said. "Next, we'll hear from minor Emily in a private chamber." Jason left the room on shaky legs. The idea of Emily being questioned about which parent she preferred was terrifying. She was just an 8-year-old child. How could she be forced to make such a terrible choice? In the hallway, Mr. Anthony tried to reassure him. "She did well," the lawyer said. Jessica contradicted herself several times and it became clear she doesn't know Emily. "But what about the money?" asked Jason. "How can we compete with mansions and international schools?" "Jason, listen carefully to what I'm telling you," said Mr. Anthony, holding his shoulders. "Experienced judges know that a happy child doesn't depend on money. It depends on love, emotional stability, and constant presence from parents." Jason wanted to believe it, but it was hard to hold on to hope. At that moment, a woman discreetly approached. She was brunette, middle-aged, wearing simple clothes. "Sorry to bother you," she said quietly, "but I'm Carmen. I work as a housekeeper for Miss Jessica." Jason and Mr. Anthony exchanged surprised glances. "What can we do for you?" asked Mr. Anthony. Carmen looked around nervously, making sure no one was listening. I heard you talking about Emily," she said, "and I can't stay silent." "What do you mean?" asked Jason. "I've been taking care of the house for 3 years," Carmen explained, "and I've seen how Emily is treated when she visits them. Miss Jessica, she has no patience with the girl." Jason felt his heart race. "Can you be more specific?" asked Mr. Anthony. "Emily stays in her room most of the time," Carmen shared. "Ms. Jessica says children should be quiet, that they can't bother adults. The girl hardly ever leaves her room when she's there. Would you be willing to testify about that?" asked Mr. Anthony. Carmen shook her head immediately. "I can't, sir. I need this job. I have my sick mother to care for and 2 children to raise," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "But I can't see an unhappy child and stay silent." "We understand," said Jason. "Thank you for telling us." Carmen quickly walked away, leaving Jason and Mr. Anthony processing the information. It was exactly what they needed, but they had no way to prove it. When the hearing resumed, the moment Jason most feared arrived, Emily would be heard by the judge. The girl had arrived accompanied by a court psychologist and was visibly nervous. "Emily will speak with me privately," announced Judge Amanda. "Only I, the clerk, and the psychologist will be present." Jason wanted to run to his daughter and hug her, tell her everything would be okay. But all he could do was watch as Emily followed the judge to a smaller room nearby. The conversation lasted 40 minutes. For Jason, they were the longest 40 minutes of his life. He kept imagining what questions they were asking Emily, if she was scared, if she was managing to express what she really felt. Jessica, across the room, also seemed nervous. She kept fidgeting with her purse and whispering with Mr. Henry. When they finally returned, Emily ran straight to Jason. "Daddy!" she shouted, throwing herself into his arms. Jason hugged her tightly, smelling the gentle scent of children's shampoo in her hair. "I missed you, my love," he whispered. "Me too, Daddy," replied Emily, clinging to him as if she never wanted to let go. The judge returned to her seat and looked at everyone present. "Based on everything I've heard today and the conversation with the minor Emily," she began, "I need some time to analyze all the information before making a decision." "When will we have the result?" asked Mr. Henry. "The ruling will be published next Friday," replied Judge Amanda. "Until then, custody remains with Mr. Jason Mitchell." Jason felt a momentary relief, but he knew it wasn't all settled yet. He had 4 more days of agony ahead. When the hearing ended, Jason left the courthouse holding Emily's hand. She was clingier than usual, as if sensing something important had happened. "Daddy, why did I have to talk to the lady from the court?" asked Emily as they walked to the bus stop. Jason hesitated. How to explain to an 8-year-old that adults were deciding who she should live with? "She just wanted to get to know you better, my love," he said finally. "She asked me lots of things about you and about Mommy," Emily told him. "She asked where I like to stay more." "And what did you say?" asked Jason, trying to keep his voice casual. "I said I like staying with you," Emily said simply. "I said you take me to school every day, you help me with my homework, and you're always with me when I'm sick." Jason felt his eyes fill with tears. "And about Mommy?" he asked. "I said I like Mommy too, but she lives very far away, and when I visit her, I have to stay quiet in my room," explained Emily. "The lady asked if I'd be happy living far from you, and I said no." Jason stopped walking and knelt in front of Emily, holding her small hands. "Emily, no matter what happens, Daddy will always love you very, very, very much," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "I know, Daddy," replied Emily, hugging his neck, "and I'll always love you too." That night, after Emily fell asleep, Jason sat at the kitchen table looking at the bills he needed to pay. Money was tight, as always, but somehow he always managed to make everything work. He picked up the notebook where he wrote down expenses and started calculating the month's bills. Rent, $700, electricity, $120, water, $60, phone, $40, food, $300, school supplies for Emily, $80. When he finished, he saw that exactly $15 remained for emergencies. It wasn't much, but it had always been this way. He and Emily had never gone hungry, never been cold, never lacked the essentials. Jason looked around the small house. The walls had water stains he couldn't fix, the refrigerator made a strange noise, and the sofa was faded with time. But this was where Emily had taken her first steps, spoken her first words, spent every night of her life. How could Jessica want to tear the girl away from all this, to take her to a place where she'd just be another responsibility among many others? Jason went to Emily's room and watched her sleep. She slept, hugging the cloth doll he had bought at a bazaar when she was 3 years old. The doll was frayed and faded, but Emily never wanted another. "Daddy will fight for you until the end, my love," he whispered, kissing her forehead. In the days that followed, Jason could barely concentrate at work. His colleagues at the bus company noticed he was different, quieter and distracted. "Everything okay, Jason?" asked Mr. George, the supervisor, during the lunch break. "Just some personal problems," replied Jason, trying to force a smile. "Want to talk?" insisted Mr. George. "Sometimes it helps to get things off your chest." Jason hesitated for a moment, but ended up telling him everything. Mr. George listened in silence, shaking his head with a worried expression. "Son, that's heavy," he said when Jason finished. "But I've known you for 5 years. You're an exemplary father. Any decent judge will see that." "And if they don't?" asked Jason. "What if they only look at the money?" "Then they're not a decent judge," replied Mr. George. "But I have faith it will work out." On Thursday, the day before the ruling, Jason woke up with a fever. The stress of the past few days had taken its toll, but he couldn't miss work. Not now, when anything could be used against him. He took 2 fever pills and went to work anyway. All day, he drove the downtown suburb bus line thinking about the hearing, replaying every moment, every word said. At night, after Emily fell asleep, Jason called his mother, Ms. Rose, who lived out in the country. They talked every week, but this time he needed to vent. "Mom, I'm scared," he admitted, his voice choked. "My son, since Emily was born, you've never left her side," said Ms. Rose. "You stopped dating, stopped going out with friends, dedicated your whole life to that girl. God won't allow you to be separated." "What if God wants Emily to have a better life?" asked Jason. "My dear," said Ms. Rose, her voice full of wisdom, "a better life isn't having more money, it's having more love. And that girl will never find someone who loves her more than you do." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. On Friday, Jason woke up before the alarm. It was 5 in the morning and he was already wide awake, his heart racing. It was the day of the ruling. He got up quietly, so as not to wake Emily, and went to take a shower. He stood under the hot water for a long time, trying to relax the tense muscles in his shoulders and neck. When Emily woke up, Jason was already making breakfast. She appeared in the kitchen rubbing her eyes, with messy hair and a wrinkled pajama. "Good morning, my love," said Jason, trying to sound normal. "Good morning, Daddy," replied Emily, still sleepy. "Why did you wake up so early?" "I couldn't sleep well," admitted Jason. "How about a special breakfast today?" He had bought sweetbread and chocolate milk, things that normally didn't fit the budget. But that day Jason wanted everything to be special, in case it was the last breakfast they would have together. "Daddy, you're acting strange," observed Emily, looking at him with big, curious eyes. "Strange how?" asked Jason, sitting beside her. "I don't know." "Different," said Emily. "Are you sad?" Jason took his daughter's small hand in his. "Sometimes adults get worried about boring things," he explained. "But it's nothing you need to worry about, okay?" Emily nodded, but Jason could see she wasn't convinced. Children had an incredible intuition for sensing when something was wrong. After breakfast, Jason took Emily to school as he always did. At the gate, she turned to him. "Daddy, will you pick me up today?" she asked. "Of course I will, my love," replied Jason, hugging her tight. "I'll always pick you up." "Promise?" "I promise." Jason watched Emily enter the school until she disappeared from view. Then he got on his bike and pedaled to work, but his mind was completely focused on the ruling that would be published that afternoon. All day long, Jason checked his phone every 5 minutes. Mr. Anthony had promised to call as soon as the ruling came out. The hours passed slowly, as if time had slowed down on purpose. At 2 in the afternoon, the phone finally rang. "Jason?" It was Mr. Anthony's voice. "Yes, Mr. Anthony, how did it go?" asked Jason, his heart beating so hard he was sure everyone around could hear it. There was a pause on the other end of the line that seemed to last an eternity. "Jason, I need you to come to my office," said Mr. Anthony. "We need to talk in person." "Mr. Anthony, please," begged Jason. "Just tell me if I lost my daughter or not." Another long pause. "Come here, Jason. Let's talk calmly." The call ended, leaving Jason in total panic. If it were good news, Mr. Anthony would have told him over the phone. The fact that he wanted to talk in person could only mean one thing. He had lost Emily. Jason asked for time off from work, citing a family emergency, and pedaled to the city center like a desperate man. Mr. Anthony's office was on the 3rd floor of an old building, and Jason took the stairs 2 at a time. When he reached the room, Mr. Anthony was sitting behind the desk with several papers spread out in front of him. His expression was impossible to decipher. "Sit down, Jason," he said, pointing to the chair in front of the desk. Jason sat down, his hands cold and sweaty. "Mr. Anthony, please don't keep me in suspense," he said. "Did I lose Emily?" Mr. Anthony picked up one of the papers and began to read. "Judge Amanda Wilson's ruling says the following," he began. "Having carefully analyzed all testimonies, documents, and especially the conversation with the minor Emily Mitchell," Jason held his breath. "This court concludes that the child's best interest is to remain in the custody of the father, Mr. Jason Mitchell," continued Mr. Anthony. Jason couldn't process the information immediately. "What?" he asked, confused. "You won, Jason," said Mr. Anthony, a huge smile spreading across his face. "Emily stays with you." Jason felt his legs go weak. For a few seconds, he couldn't say anything. I won," he whispered. "You won," confirmed Mr. Anthony. The judge was very clear in her decision. She said money can't replace love, presence, and dedication. Jason began to cry. Tears of relief, of happiness, of gratitude. All the fears and anguish of the past few months vanished at once. "Easy there, son," said Mr. Anthony, offering a handkerchief. "There's more." "What do you mean?" asked Jason, drying his eyes. "The judge established a visitation schedule for Jessica," explained Mr. Anthony. "She can see Emily 1 weekend per month, but here in Portland. And all visits must be supervised by a social worker." "Why supervised?" asked Jason. "The judge wasn't convinced that Jessica has the emotional stability to care for Emily without supervision," explained Mr. Anthony. "She cited the fact that Jessica doesn't know basic details about her daughter's life." Jason was stunned. Not only had he kept custody, but the judge had recognized that Jessica wasn't prepared to be a full-time mother. "Mr. Anthony, may I read the full ruling?" Jason asked. Mr. Anthony handed him the papers. Jason read every word carefully, unable to believe what he was seeing. The ruling was 7 pages long and covered every aspect of the case. The judge had mentioned Ms. Sylvia's emotional testimony about Jason's love for Emily. She had cited Grandma Dorothy's dedication and how Emily felt safe and loved at home. But what impressed Jason the most was a specific passage from the ruling. During the hearing, this court was able to observe the natural and spontaneous interaction between the respondent Jason Mitchell and his daughter Emily. The genuine love and constant concern for the child's well-being are evident. In contrast, the petitioner Jessica Brown Mitchell-Taylor, despite her good intentions and financial resources, demonstrated a lack of knowledge about fundamental aspects of Emily's daily life, suggesting emotional distance. The ruling continued. It is important to emphasize that the child Emily, during a private conversation with this court, clearly expressed her desire to continue residing with her father. The minor demonstrated emotional maturity in expressing her feelings, and her reasons were considered within the context of her age and development. Jason could hardly believe it. The judge had truly listened to Emily and considered what she wanted. "Mr. Anthony," said Jason, still processing everything, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." The judge: "Did she mention anything about having met me before?" Mr. Anthony looked at him curiously. "Why do you ask?" Jason told him about the encounter on the road, how he had helped a stranger who he later discovered was the judge on the case. "Interesting," said Mr. Anthony. "She didn't mention it in the ruling, which is ethically correct, but I'm sure that gesture spoke volumes about your character." "Do you think it influenced the decision?" asked Jason. "Jason, I believe that moment merely confirmed what the judge was already seeing during the hearing," explained Mr. Anthony. "A man who stops everything to help a stranger is the same man who dedicates his entire life to caring for his daughter." Jason left Mr. Anthony's office walking on air. It was still hard to believe he had won. For so long he had prepared for the worst that he could barely process the victory. He rode to Emily's school faster than ever. He wanted to hug his daughter and tell her they would never be separated again. He arrived at the school gate 20 minutes before dismissal time and waited anxiously. When the bell rang and the children started coming out, Jason looked for Emily among them. She appeared at the classroom door talking with Lily, her best friend. When she saw Jason at the gate, her face lit up. "Daddy!" she shouted, running to him. Jason scooped her up and spun her in the air, both laughing with happiness. "Why are you so happy?" asked Emily, still in his arms. "Because today is a very special day," Jason replied. "Why?" Jason set her down and knelt in front of her, holding her hands. "Emily, do you remember that talk you had with the lady from the courthouse?" he asked. "I do." "Today she decided that you'll keep living with me forever," said Jason, his voice trembling with emotion. Emily stayed silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "You mean I won't have to go live far away?" she asked. "That's right, my love, you won't have to go live far away." Emily hugged Jason with all her strength. "I knew the lady would understand," she said. "I told her you're the best daddy in the world." Jason felt his eyes fill with tears again. How had he been so afraid of losing that amazing girl? On the way home, they stopped at Mr. Anthony's bakery to buy a cake to celebrate. It was a small extravagance, but Jason felt they needed to mark that day in some special way. "Congratulations, Jason," said Mr. Anthony when he heard the news. "Everyone here in the neighborhood was rooting for you." "Thank you, Mr. Anthony," replied Jason, moved to know he had the community's support. When they got home, Grandma Dorothy was waiting on the porch. Jason had called her from the lawyer's office to share the good news. "My boy," she said, hugging Jason tightly. "I knew God wouldn't allow this injustice." "Grandma Dorothy, I'm going to live here forever," announced Emily, jumping with joy. "Thank God, my dear granddaughter," said Grandma Dorothy, scooping Emily up in her arms. That night, after Emily fell asleep, Jason sat on the couch looking at her photos scattered around the room. Photos from the first day of school, birthdays, school festivals, park outings. Each photo told a story of love, dedication, and constant presence. Jason had been there for every important moment in Emily's life, and now he had the assurance that he would continue to be. He picked up the phone and called his mother. "Mom, we won," he said, his voice full of joy. "I knew, my son," replied Ms. Rose, emotional. "I knew God would bring justice." "The judge understood that love is worth more than money," Jason told her. "Because she's a wise woman," said Ms. Rose. "And because you're a wonderful father." The following Monday, Jason returned to work with his head held high. All his colleagues came to congratulate him, happy with the outcome. Mr. George even organized a special lunch to celebrate. "You deserved it, Jason," said Mr. George. "Everyone here knows the kind of father you are." During the break, Jason received an unexpected call. It was from Judge Amanda. "Mr. Jason," she said, "this is Judge Amanda Wilson." Jason was surprised. Why would the judge be calling him? "Good afternoon, Judge," he replied respectfully. "I'd like to speak with you in person if possible," she said. "It's about Emily's case, but don't worry, it's nothing bad." "Of course, Judge. When would you like to?" "How about today at 6 in the evening at Washington Park," she suggested. "It's a more private setting than the courthouse." Jason agreed, curious about what the judge wanted to discuss. The rest of the day passed slowly, with him speculating about the reasons for the meeting. At 6 o'clock sharp, Jason arrived at Washington Park and found Judge Amanda sitting on a bench near the lake. She was dressed casually, in jeans and a white blouse, very different from the imposing robe she wore in court. "Thank you for coming," she said as Jason approached. "Of course, Judge," replied Jason, sitting beside her. They stayed quiet for a few minutes, watching the families strolling through the park. Children ran on the grass while parents chatted. "Jason," said Amanda finally, "I need to tell you something." Jason turned to her, attentive. "When we met on that road," she continued, "I was having the worst day of my career." "What do you mean?" asked Jason. "That morning I had presided over a case very similar to yours," explained Amanda. "A wealthy mother wanted to take custody away from the father, who was a simple, hard-working man with limited means. Jason listened in silence. "I granted custody to the mother," said Amanda, her voice heavy with regret. "I thought I was doing what was best for the child. 2 weeks later, I learned that the boy was unhappy, crying every day, asking to go back to his father." Jason began to understand where she was going with this. "When you stopped to help me on that road," Amanda went on, "I was returning from a visit to that family. I saw the sad, distant boy being cared for by employees while his mother was too busy to give him attention. And then I showed up," said Jason. "Exactly," confirmed Amanda. "A man who didn't even know me, who was clearly in a hurry, but stopped everything to help a stranger. At that moment I realized I had misjudged the other case." Jason grew thoughtful. "Judge, are you saying our meeting influenced your decision in my case?" "No," said Amanda firmly. "Your decision was based solely on the merits of the case, the evidence presented, and Emily's well-being." "Then why are you telling me this?" asked Jason, confused. Amanda smiled for the first time since they had sat down. "Because I want to thank you," she said. "You reminded me that sometimes the best people aren't the ones with more money, but the ones with more love in their hearts." Jason felt a lump in his throat. "Judge, I'm the one who should thank you," he said. "You looked beyond appearances and understood what really matters." "Can I ask you a personal question?" said Amanda. "Of course. Have you ever thought about getting married again? Doesn't Emily miss having a mother figure?" Jason thought for a few seconds before answering. "I have thought about it," he admitted, "but Emily is my priority. If one day I meet someone who loves her as much as I do, then I might consider it." "What about Jessica? Do you still hold any resentment toward her?" "No," Jason answered honestly. "Jessica made her choices, I made mine. I hope she's happy. I hope. And I hope she learns to be a better mother to Emily." Amanda was impressed by his maturity. "You're a rare man, Jason," she said. "Emily is very lucky to have you as her father." They talked for a few more minutes before saying goodbye. As they walked toward the park exit, Amanda made one final remark. "Jason, if you need anything for Emily, a doctor's appointment, advice about school, anything, you can come to me. I consider you a special family." "Thank you, Judge," said Jason. "That means a lot to us." In the months that followed, Jason and Emily's life returned to normal. Better than normal, actually, because now they were certain that no one would separate them. Jessica complied with the visitation schedule set by the court. Once a month, she came to Portland to spend a Saturday with Emily. The visits were supervised by a social worker, Ms. Martha, a patient woman who gradually helped Jessica understand her daughter's needs. "How is she doing?" Jason asked Ms. Martha after a few months. "She's improving," she replied. "At first, Jessica treated Emily like a doll, just wanting to take photos to post on social media, but she's learning to actually talk to her. Jason was glad to hear that Jessica was trying to connect with Emily more genuinely. Regardless of what had happened between them, she was still Emily's mother. "Emily gets happy when her mom comes to visit?" asked Jason. "Yes, she does," said Miss Martha. "But of course the bond with you is much stronger. You are her main reference." One day, about 6 months after the ruling, Emily came home from school with news. "Daddy," Aunt Sylvia said, "I'm one of the best students in class," she told him, proud. "That's great, sweetie," said Jason. "You've been studying hard." "She said I could try for a scholarship to a private school," continued Emily. Jason stopped washing the dishes and turned to her. "What do you mean?" "There's a program for kids who get good grades," explained Emily. "Aunt Sylvia said you have to sign some papers." Jason became thoughtful. A scholarship would be an amazing opportunity for Emily, but it would also mean changes to their routine. The next day he went to talk to Miss Sylvia at the school. "Jason, Emily is truly exceptional," said the principal. "She has the potential to get a full scholarship to St. Elizabeth Academy. It's one of the best private schools in the city." "And how does it work?" asked Jason. "She would take a test and have an interview," explained Miss Sylvia. "If she passes, she'd get a full scholarship through high school." Jason thought about Jessica and how she had used the education issue against him in court. "Do you think it's a good idea?" he asked. "I think Emily deserves to have every opportunity possible," replied Miss Sylvia. "And the fact that she earned this on her own merit makes it even more special." Jason decided to talk to Emily about the possibility. "Sweetie, would you like to try studying at a new school?" he asked that evening. "Is it far from here?" asked Emily. "No, it's right here in Portland. And would I still live with you?" "Of course," answered Jason. "Only the school would change." Emily thought for a few seconds. "I can try," she said. "But if I don't like it, can I go back to my school?" "Of course you can," assured Jason. The test was scheduled for a Saturday morning. Jason took Emily to the school and waited outside, as nervous as if he were taking the test himself. 2 hours later, Emily came out smiling. "How was it?" asked Jason anxiously. "It was fun," she replied. "The questions weren't too hard. The results would come out in a week." It was 7 days of anxiety for Jason, who didn't want to pressure Emily but was curious about the outcome. On Friday, Miss Sylvia called. "Jason, I have good news," she said, her voice full of joy. "Emily passed. She got the full scholarship." Jason felt a wave of pride wash over him. His daughter had earned through her own merit something that Jessica wanted to buy with money. "How did she do?" he asked. "She got the second highest score among all the candidates," told Miss Sylvia. The school coordinator was impressed with her maturity and intelligence. That afternoon, when Jason picked up Emily from school, Miss Sylvia was waiting with an envelope. "This is the official result," she said, handing the paper to Emily. Emily carefully opened the envelope and read the contents. Her eyes lit up. "Daddy, I passed!" she shouted, jumping for joy. "Congratulations, sweetie," said Jason, hugging her tight. "I'm so proud of you." On the way home, Emily was beaming. "Daddy, now I'll study at the same school as the rich kids," she said. "Emily," said Jason, stopping walking, "you're not better or worse than anyone because of the school you go to or the money you have. You're special because you're smart, kind, and hardworking." "I know, Daddy," replied Emily, "but it's cool to know I got this on my own." "It's very cool," agreed Jason, "and I couldn't be prouder." The news spread quickly through the neighborhood. Miss Dorothy was euphoric. Mr. Anthony from the bakery gave away a free cake to celebrate, and all the neighbors came to congratulate Jason and Emily. "That girl is going places," Miss Dorothy would say to anyone who would listen. "With a father like Jason and intelligence like hers, there's no limit." A few weeks later, Jason received an unexpected call. It was from Mr. Henry, Jessica's lawyer. "Mr. Jason," he said, his voice very different from the arrogance he had shown in court. "I'd like to speak with you." "About what?" asked Jason, suspicious. "About Emily and the scholarship," replied Mr. Henry. "May I visit you?" Jason agreed, curious about what the lawyer wanted. The next day, Mr. Henry appeared at his home. He was dressed casually and seemed more human than in court. "Mr. Jason," he began, sitting on the simple living room sofa, "I need to apologize." Jason was surprised. "Apologize for what?" "For having doubted you in court," admitted Mr. Henry. "When I learned that Emily earned a scholarship on her own merit, I understood that I was wrong about everything." Jason didn't know what to say. "You see," the lawyer continued, "my client could offer private school for Emily, but the girl achieved this herself, studying in public school and being raised by a father who, despite not having money, gave her values and intelligence." "Mr. Henry, you don't need to apologize," said Jason. "You were just doing your job." "No, I really do," insisted Mr. Henry, "because I saw that money really isn't everything. Emily is an exceptional child because she was raised with love and dedication." After the lawyer left, Jason kept thinking about the conversation. It was comforting to know that even those who had fought against him in court could recognize that he had made the right choice. That weekend, Jessica came for her monthly visit with Emily. As always, Miss Martha accompanied the meeting, but this time, Jessica asked to speak with Jason privately. "Jason," she said when they were alone in the front yard, "I need to tell you something." Jason waited in silence. "You were right," said Jessica, her voice low. "I wasn't ready to be a full-time mother." "Jessica, let me finish," she interrupted. "These months of supervised visits have made me realize how much I didn't know our daughter. Ms. Martha taught me a lot about how to talk to Emily, how to understand her needs." Jason was surprised by Jessica's sincerity. "When I heard about the scholarship," she continued, "I understood that you gave Emily something my money could never buy: self-esteem and the confidence to achieve things on her own merit." "Emily is a special child," said Jason. "She always has been." "She's special because she had you as a father," said Jessica, her eyes filling with tears. I want to be a better mother to her, not to take her away from you, but to complement the love you already give." Jason was moved to see Jessica acknowledging her mistakes and trying to improve. "Jessica, Emily needs love from all sides," he said. "If you truly want to be a present mother, I support that." "Thank you," said Jessica. "And thank you for taking such good care of her all these years. I didn't deserve it, but you did it anyway." 2 years had passed since the court hearing. Emily was adapting very well to the private school and continued to be one of the top students. Her relationship with Jessica had also improved significantly. One Saturday morning, Jason was cleaning the house when Emily came running in from outside. "Daddy! Daddy!" she shouted, out of breath from running. "Calm down, sweetheart," said Jason. "What happened?" "There's a young lady outside who wants to speak with you," said Emily. "She said you know each other." Jason went to the door and found Judge Amanda standing at the gate. She smiled when she saw him. "Hi, Jason," she said. "Sorry to show up like this without warning." "Don't mention it, Your Honor," replied Jason, opening the gate. "Please, come in." Amanda entered and went to greet Emily, who recognized her immediately. "You're the lady who spoke with me at the courthouse," said Emily excitedly. "That's right," replied Amanda. "And how are you doing?" "Very well. I'm studying at a new school and getting good grades," Emily shared proudly. "That's wonderful," said Amanda, genuinely happy. After Emily went to play in the backyard, Amanda and Jason sat in the living room. "How have you both been?" asked Amanda. "We're doing very well," replied Jason. "Emily is happy, doing well in school, getting along better with her mother. I can't complain." "I'm glad to hear that," said Amanda. "I came here for a specific reason." Jason grew curious. "Remember I told you about that case I judged incorrectly?" asked Amanda. "I remember." "I managed to reverse the decision," she said, smiling. "The boy went back to his father 6 months ago, and he's much happier now." Jason smiled too. "That's great, Your Honor. It must have been rewarding to fix that." "It was," confirmed Amanda. "And it was thanks to your case that I understood better how to judge those situations." They talked for a few more minutes, with Amanda asking about Emily's school and Jason's plans for the future. "Jason," she said before leaving, "can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. You once said you'd only get married again if you found someone who loved Emily as much as you do. Do you still feel that way?" Jason thought for a moment. I think so, he replied. Emily is still my priority, but I admit I sometimes think about having someone to share life with. And what kind of person would that someone be? Asked Amanda, trying to sound casual. Someone kind, intelligent, who understands that Emily always comes first, said Jason. Someone who doesn't want to change our routine, but add to it. Amanda smiled. It sounds like you know exactly what you want, she said. After everything we've been through, I've learned to value what really matters, replied Jason. When Amanda left, Emily approached her father. Daddy, do you like the lady from the courthouse? She asked with typical childlike curiosity. Why do you ask that? Said Jason, trying to hide his embarrassment. Because you both turned red when you were talking, observed Emily, and she smiled a lot at you. Jason laughed at his daughter's perceptiveness. She's a very good person, he said. She's the one who decided you'd live with me. Then I like her, declared Emily. Anyone who lets me stay with you is a good person. In the weeks that followed, Amanda visited Jason and Emily a few more times, always with professional excuses. She wanted to know how Emily was adjusting, if Jason needed any guidance, if Jessica was properly following the visitation schedule. But gradually it became clear that the reasons for the visits were more personal than professional. Your Honor, Amanda, said Emily during one visit, do you have children? I don't, replied Amanda. I've always wanted to, but never found the right person. Would you like to have children? Insisted Emily. Very much, admitted Amanda, especially a smart daughter like you. Jason and Amanda exchanged glances, both clearly moved by the conversation. After Emily went to sleep, Jason and Amanda stayed talking in the living room. Jason, said Amanda, I need to tell you something. What is it? These visits, they're not just professional, she admitted. I like you both. I like you very much. Jason felt his heart race. Amanda, he said, me too. I have feelings for you, but it's complicated. Because of our history, the courthouse, she asked. Not just that, explained Jason. You're a successful, educated, upper-middle-class woman. I'm a simple man who works 2 jobs to pay the bills. Jason, said Amanda, taking his hand, when I met you on that road, you helped me without expecting anything in return. At the courthouse, I saw how much you love Emily. Over the past few months, I've come to know your kindness, your honesty, your simplicity. Those are the qualities that matter to me. And Emily? Asked Jason. Are you sure you're ready to be a stepmother? Emily is a wonderful child, replied Amanda, and it would be an honor to be part of her life. Jason was moved by Amanda's sincerity. I'd really like to try, he said, but we have to take it slow because of Emily. Of course, agreed Amanda. She's the priority. In the following months, Amanda started visiting Jason's house regularly. She fit perfectly into the family's routine, helping Emily with homework, chatting with Grandma Dorothy, taking part in school activities. Emily loved having Amanda around. She was a motherly figure without trying to replace Jessica, complimenting the love the girl received. One Sunday, 6 months after they started dating, Jason decided to surprise Amanda. He took her and Emily for a picnic at the same park where they had talked for the first time after the courthouse. Why did you choose this place? Asked Amanda as they spread the blanket on the grass. Because it was here that I understood you looked beyond appearances, replied Jason. After lunch, while Emily played at the nearby playground, Jason knelt in front of Amanda. Amanda, he said, taking a small box from his pocket. You've changed our lives in ways I never thought possible. Amanda brought her hands to her mouth, surprised. You not only gave us justice at the courthouse, continued Jason, but you gave us love, companionship, a complete family. Emily, who had noticed what was happening, ran over to them. Judge Amanda, said Jason, will you marry me? Will you officially become part of our family? Yes, replied Amanda, her eyes filled with happy tears. Yes, I will, Emily shouted with joy and hugged them both. Now I'll have one mom here at home and another who comes to visit, she said happily. The wedding was simple but full of love. It took place at the neighborhood church where Jason lived, attended by their closest friends. Grandma Dorothy was Jason's matron of honor, Miss Sylvia was Emily's godmother, and Mr. Anthony was the best man. Even Jessica attended, now genuinely happy for her daughter's happiness. She had matured greatly during those years and developed genuine respect for Jason. "Thank you for taking such good care of our daughter," she said to Amanda during the reception. "I know Emily is in good hands." "I'll love her as if she were my biological daughter," promised Amanda. "I know," replied Jessica. "Anyone Jason chooses will be a special person." 2 years after the wedding, the lives of Jason, Amanda, and Emily were in perfect harmony. Jason had gotten a better job at a friend's workshop, Amanda continued working as a judge, and Emily was in her last year of elementary school, still maintaining her excellent grades. They moved to a bigger house, but in the same neighborhood, so Emily wouldn't lose contact with Grandma Dorothy and the neighborhood friends. One day Emily came home from school with news. "Dad, Mom, Amanda," she said, using the affectionate term she had created for her stepmother, "I have something to tell you." "What is it, my love?" asked Jason. "The teacher said I can apply for a university scholarship when I finish high school," announced Emily. "There's a program for low-income students with good grades." Jason and Amanda exchanged a proud look. "That's wonderful, Em," said Amanda. "You have all the potential to get it." "And I'll support you in everything," added Jason. That night, after Emily fell asleep, Jason and Amanda talked in bed about the future. "Have you ever imagined Emily in college?" asked Amanda. "Sometimes," replied Jason, "but I also get scared of her growing up too fast." "It's normal," said Amanda. "But think, she'll get there because you gave her the right foundation." "You," corrected Jason. "Now we're a complete family." "Jason," said Amanda, nestling into his arms, "thank you for showing me what really matters in life." "Thank you for seeing beyond what I had in the bank," replied Jason. "For seeing who I was in my heart." The following Sunday, they went to visit Ms. Rose, Jason's mother, in the countryside. Emily loved going to her great-grandmother's farm, where she could run freely and help take care of the animals. "My son," Ms. Rose said to Jason as they watched Emily playing in the yard, "you've achieved everything you deserved: a united family, a wonderful daughter, a wife who truly loves you." "Sometimes I still can't believe it all worked out," admitted Jason. "It worked out because you never gave up on doing what's right," said Ms. Rose. "Even when it seemed impossible, you kept being a good father, a good man." "And now Emily has a bright future ahead," observed Amanda. "She always did," corrected Ms. Rose. "She just needed someone to believe in her." "And you always did." When they returned home that afternoon, they found Grandma Dorothy waiting on the porch with a chocolate cake. "What's the cake for, Grandma Dorothy?" asked Emily. "To celebrate life," replied the neighbor with a smile. "Sometimes we need to stop and be thankful for all the good things we have." They all sat at the kitchen table to share the cake. Jason looked around and saw Emily laughing at some joke Amanda had told, Grandma Dorothy serving another slice for everyone, the dog they had adopted sleeping at the foot of the table. It was a simple, everyday scene, but full of love and gratitude. "What are you thinking about?" asked Amanda, noticing Jason's thoughtful gaze. "About how life can surprise us," he replied. "A few years ago I was desperate, thinking I was going to lose Emily. Today I have a complete family, and she has a bright future ahead." "And it all started with you stopping to help a stranger on the road," observed Amanda. "No," corrected Jason. "It all started with love. The rest was a consequence." Emily, who was listening to the conversation, stood up and hugged Jason and Amanda at the same time. "I love you," she said simply. "We love you too," they both replied together. Outside, the streetlights began to turn on, signaling the end of another day. But inside that simple house, happiness would continue to shine for a long time. A few more years passed. Emily was now in high school and, as predicted, continued to be an exemplary student. At 16, she was a mature, kind, and determined young woman, a reflection of the upbringing she had received. One afternoon, Emily came home with a letter in her hand and her eyes shining with excitement. "Dad, Mom, Amanda," she said, "the university's response arrived." Jason and Amanda dropped everything they were doing and approached their daughter. "Open it now," said Jason eagerly. Emily carefully opened the envelope and read silently for a few seconds. Then a huge smile spread across her face. "I got it," she shouted. "I got the full scholarship for law at Portland State University." Jason felt his eyes fill with tears. His daughter, the girl he had raised alone in a modest home, had earned a full scholarship to one of the best universities in the country. "Congratulations, my love," he said, hugging Emily tightly. "I'm so proud of you," said Amanda, joining the hug. "Do you think I should accept it?" asked Emily. "It's far from home." "Emily," said Jason, holding his daughter's face in his hands, "you've worked your whole life to get here. Of course you should accept." "But I'll miss you," she said. "And we'll miss you," Amanda replied. "But we'll be here whenever you need us. And you can come home whenever you want." That night they called Ms. Rose, who screamed with joy upon hearing the news. Grandma Dorothy showed up with another cake, and even Jessica called to congratulate her daughter. "Emily," Jessica said over the phone, "you're an amazing young woman. I'm very proud of you." "Thank you, Mum," Emily replied, "and thank you for accepting the court's decision years ago. If I had gone to live with you, maybe I wouldn't have gotten this far." "You would have gone anywhere," said Jessica, "because you have your father's determination and a unique intelligence." 2 months later, the day came for Emily to leave for university. Jason had bought a used Corolla so she could get around, and Amanda had prepared a list of useful contacts in Portland. "Dad," Emily said on the morning of the trip, "thank you for fighting for me in court." "Emily, I would do it all over again 1,000 times, Jason replied, emotional. "If you hadn't won that case, I wouldn't be the person I am today," she said. "You taught me that it's possible to achieve things on your own merit, with honesty and hard work." "You taught me that it's worth fighting for what's right," Jason replied. When Emily left, Jason and Amanda stood at the door waving until the car disappeared around the bend. The house felt empty without the young woman's lively presence. "We're going to miss her," said Amanda, resting her head on Jason's shoulder. "A lot," he agreed, "but we raised a strong and independent daughter. Now it's time for her to fly on her own." Emily graduated from law school 5 years later with academic honors. During college, she had interned at the courthouse where Amanda worked and discovered her passion for family law. "I want to help other children like I was helped," she told Jason and Amanda during the graduation ceremony. "You're going to be an amazing lawyer," said Amanda, proud. "You'll give a voice to those who don't have one," Jason added. After graduation, Emily returned to Portland and opened a small law firm specializing in family law. Her first case was exactly like Jason's, a father fighting for custody of his son against a wealthy mother who had abandoned the child years before. "This case reminds me a lot of another one I judged years ago," Amanda told Emily when she learned of the case. "That's why I chose to be a lawyer," Emily replied, "to ensure that other children have the chance to stay with those who truly love them." Emily's first case was a success. The father managed to keep custody of his son, and she began to build a solid reputation in the city. 2 years after graduating, Emily met Peter, a young doctor who worked at the public hospital in Portland. They fell in love quickly, united by the same dedication to social work. "Dad, Mom, Amanda," Emily said at a Sunday dinner, "I want to introduce someone to you." When Peter arrived, Jason and Amanda were impressed by the young man's simplicity and kindness. He talked at length with Jason about his work at the public hospital and showed genuine interest in the family's story. "He reminds me of you at his age," Amanda said to Jason later. "The same kindness, the same willingness to help others." "Emily chose well," Jason agreed. A year later, Emily and Peter were married in a simple yet moving ceremony. Jason walked Emily down the aisle, emotional at seeing the girl he had raised become a fulfilled woman. "Dad," Emily said before the ceremony, "thank you for teaching me to value what truly matters." "Thank you for being the best daughter a father could ask for," Jason replied. During the reception, Grandma Dorothy, now 85 but still sharp, gave a heartfelt speech. "I watched this girl grow up," she said, "and I can say she became exactly what I always knew she would be, a person of integrity, kindness, and fairness." Jessica was also present at the wedding, accompanied by Richard. Over the years, she had become a more constant presence in Emily's life, though always respecting Jason's primary role as father. "Jason," Jessica said during the reception, "thank you for being the parent I couldn't be as a mother." "Jessica, You're important in Emily's life too, Jason replied. We each played our part. 3 years after the wedding, Emily and Peter gave Jason and Amanda the most anticipated gift, a grandson. Ethan, named after a character from a story Emily loved as a child, was born healthy and full of life. Look at this, Jason said, holding his grandson in his arms, a new generation beginning. And he'll grow up in a world where he has great-grandma Dorothy, Grandpa Jason, Grandma Amanda, and Grandma Jessica, Emily observed. A big family full of love. Just like you grew up, Amanda said, with love from all sides. When Ethan turned 2, the family organized a big party in the backyard of the house where Jason and Emily had lived together for so many years. Miss Dorothy, despite her advanced age, insisted on being there. Grandma Dorothy, Emily said, kneeling beside her neighbor's chair, thank you for taking care of me when I was little. My dear granddaughter, Miss Dorothy replied, stroking Emily's face. It was a pleasure to watch you grow into this wonderful woman. That day, as he watched 3 generations of the family gathered in the simple backyard where it all began, Jason reflected on the journey they had taken. From a desperate man fighting for custody of his daughter, he had become the patriarch of a close-knit, thriving family. Emily had become a respected lawyer, married to a good man, and the mother of a healthy child. What are you thinking about? Amanda asked, approaching him. About how a simple act of kindness can change the course of an entire life, Jason replied. Are you talking about the roadside? She asked. I'm talking about all the acts of kindness we received along the way, Jason said. Ms. Dorothy caring for Emily, Ms. Sylvia testifying on our behalf, you seeing beyond appearances, and you stopping to help a stranger, Amanda added. It all connected perfectly. They watched Emily playing with Ethan on the grass, Peter chatting with Ms. Rose about medicinal plants, Jessica and Richard helping serve the guests. Jason, Amanda said, do you think Ethan will hear these stories when he grows up? Absolutely, Jason replied. Emily will tell him about the importance of fighting for what's right, about how true love overcomes any obstacle, and about how small acts of kindness can change the world, Amanda added. At that moment, Ethan ran up to Jason and held out his little arms to be picked up. Grandpa, the boy said in his adorable toddler speech. Jason lifted him up and raised him high, making Ethan laugh with joy. This boy is going to grow up surrounded by love, Jason said to Amanda. Just like you raised Emily, she replied. Just like we raised Emily, Jason corrected. When the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange hues exactly like that day on the country road years ago, Jason remembered how it all began. A desperate woman beside a broken car, a simple man who stopped to help. Neither of them knew that encounter would change their lives forever. Amanda, said Jason, do you believe in destiny? I believe in kindness, she replied. I believe that when we do good, good comes back to us in ways we never imagined. So you think all this was meant to happen? I think you made the right decision on that road, said Amanda. And all the other right decisions you made after that led to this. Jason looked around once more. Emily was showing Ethan how to push a toy car. Peter was chatting animatedly with Mr. Anthony about medical advances. Grandma Dorothy was telling old stories to anyone who would listen. It was a perfect scene of family happiness, simple yet profound, rich in love, even without material luxuries. Emily, Jason called. She approached with Ethan in her arms. What is it, Dad? I just wanted to say, I'm very proud of the woman you've become, he said, emotional. I'm a reflection of everything you taught me, replied Emily, and now I'm going to teach the same things to Ethan. Specifically what? Asked Amanda. That it doesn't matter where you were born or how much money you have, said Emily. What matters is the love you give and receive, the honesty with which you live, and the courage to fight for what's right. Ethan, who was listening even without understanding everything, clapped as if agreeing with his mother's words. This boy already has personality, laughed Jason. Just like his mother at that age, observed Amanda. When the party ended and everyone had left, Jason, Amanda, and Emily stayed behind cleaning up the backyard. Ethan had fallen asleep in his grandfather's arms, and Peter had taken him home. Dad, said Emily, thank you for organizing this party. It was your mother, Amanda's idea, said Jason. "She said the family needed to get together to celebrate life." "She was right," said Emily. "Sometimes we get so busy with daily life that we forget to stop and give thanks." "What are you most grateful for?" asked Amanda. Emily thought for a few seconds. "For growing up in a family where love always came first," she answered. "For learning that earning things through your own merit is much more rewarding than having everything handed to you. And for having parents who never gave up on me," she added, looking at Jason and Amanda. "We could never give up on you," said Jason. "You're the most important thing in our lives." "Now you have Ethan to love in the same way," observed Amanda. "And he'll grow up knowing this story," promised Emily. "He'll know that his grandfather fought in court not to lose her, that Grandma Amanda did justice when she could have been unjust, that the whole family came together to raise a happy child." "It's a beautiful story," said Amanda. "It's a love story," corrected Jason. That night, as they were getting ready for bed, Jason stopped in the room that had been Emily's when she was little, and now served as a guest room for when Ethan slept at his grandparents' house. The walls still had some of the drawings Emily had made as a child, simple drawings of a house with a man and a girl smiling, drawings of hearts and flowers, drawings of a happy family. "What are you thinking about?" asked Amanda, approaching him. "About how it was all worth it," said Jason. "Every moment of fear, every sleepless night, every financial worry, it was all worth it to get here. And it's not over yet," said Amanda. "Now we have Ethan to watch grow up, Emily to keep supporting, a whole life still ahead of us." "A life full of love," Jason completed. They embraced in the middle of the room where Emily had spent so many childhood nights, where Jason had told thousands of stories to put her to sleep, where she had dreamed of the future she was now living. "Jason," said Amanda, "thank you for showing me what a real family is like." "Thank you for completing our family," he replied. They left the room hand in hand, turning off the light, but leaving the door slightly ajar, as Jason always did when Emily was little. In their room, before going to sleep, Jason picked up a photo from the nightstand. It was from Emily's college graduation. She was in the middle, he and Amanda on one side, Jessica and Richard on the other, all smiling proudly. "You know what makes me proudest in this photo?" Jason said to Amanda. "What?" "That everyone there truly loves Emily," he said. "Even with all the hardships we went through, we managed to create a network of love around her. And she knew how to make the most of all that love to become an amazing person," Amanda observed. "The same will happen with Ethan," said Jason. "He'll grow up surrounded by love and become a good person." "Absolutely," Amanda agreed. They put the photo back on the table and settled down to sleep. Outside, the city of Portland slept peacefully. In the modest house in the Meadowbrook Heights neighborhood, two people who loved each other fell asleep grateful for everything life had given them. And somewhere in the city, Emily was probably telling a story to Ethan before he went to sleep. A story about kindness, justice, and family love. The cycle continued, as it always would, passing down from generation to generation the values that truly matter in life. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this touching story. Where are you watching from? Do you think Jason always made the right decisions? What moved you most in this journey of love and overcoming? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. We love reading every message from you. Don't forget to leave your like to help us out, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.